majoritarian norms and banality of fundamentalism in India. Myself, Fatima Rifa KV, and I'm from CM Aisha Hajima Institute of Advanced Studies. At the outset, I would like to clarify the central concern of this paper. When we hear the term fundamentalism, we usually think of extremism, violence, riots, or radical movements. These visible movements dominate public discourses and academic analysis. However, our argument is that fundamentalism today often operates most effectively when it does not look extreme at all. Instead, it works through everyday routine and seemingly neutral practices through what happens normal, administrative, cultural, or even celebratory. This paper asks a simple but important question: what happens when fundamentalism becomes ordinary? To address this question, we draw on two key theoretical frameworks. The first is Michael Billig's concept of banal nationalism. Billig argues that nationalism is not sustained only during wars, elections, or crises. Rather, it is reproduced daily. Through mundane reminders, language, rituals, symbols, institutional routines that constantly flag the nation without calling attention to themselves. Because these reminders are ordinary and repetitive, they feel natural and apolitical. Yet, they are precisely what makes nationalism durable. The second framework comes from Arjun Appadurai's concept of fear of small numbers. Appadurai argues that majorities often experience deep anxiety about minorities, not because minorities are powerful, but because their presence disrupts the idea of culturally pure and complete nation. This anxiety is not always expressed through violence. More often, it is managed through symbolic control, through culture, history, visibility, and representation. Our paper brings these two ideas together. We argue that banal nationalism provides everyday mechanisms, while majoritarian anxiety provides the motivation behind them. In the Indian context, nationalism was historically framed through the Nehruvian idea of unity in diversity. Plurality was presented as a foundational value, not a threat. However, in recent decades, we see a shift toward majoritarian nationalism, where national identity is increasingly aligned with a dominant cultural and religious imagination. What is crucial here is that this shift does not always happen through explicit exclusion or legal force. Instead, it occurs through ordinary institutional practices that appear neutral or corrective. Examples include renaming cities and public spaces, revising school textbooks, reframing historical narratives, reconfiguring state rituals and natural spectacles. These practices rarely announce themselves as ideological interventions. They are justified as cultural restoration, historical correction, or administrative necessity. This is precisely where banality becomes powerful. Most existing studies on nationalism and fundamentalism in India focus on mainly elections, political rhetoric, communal violence, and legal changes. What remains underexplored is how ideology becomes normalized in everyday life. Our study adopts a qualitative, interpretive methodology grounded in cultural studies and discourse analysis. We examine place names, school textbooks, Republic Day tableau, official cultural representations. We treat this not as neutral cultural artifacts, but as sites of ideological meaning making. Let me now briefly highlight three key sites of analysis. The first one is renaming of places. Renaming cities, streets, and institutions is often presented as administrative correction or cultural reclamation. However, place names carry historical memory. They reflect layers of cultural presence, interaction, and plurality. When names are changed and normalized through official documents, media usage, and everyday speech, alternative histories slowly disappear. Importantly, this does not feel violent or radical. It feels routine. This is banality at work, asserting dominance while appearing neutral. And the second one is textbooks are among the most powerful ideological tools because they are seen as objective knowledge. Curriculum revisions rarely announce ideological intent. Instead, they operate through selective emphasis, omission, narrative framing. Students encounter these narratives not as political arguments, but as a fact to memorize. Through repetition and institutional authority, a particular vision of nation becomes common sense. This is what we describe as pedagogical nationalism. And the third one, Republic Day tableau in state rituals. Republic Day parades and often understood as celebrations of national unity. Historically, tableau emphasized pluralism and regional diversity. However, over time, we observe subtle shifts in symbolism, cultural emphasis, visibility. Diversity is not removed, it is reframed under a dominant civilizational narrative. Because this happens within a festive and emotional ritual, it resists critique. This ritual function as banal pedagogy, teaching citizens how to see and feel the nation without explicit instruction. What emerges from this analysis is a crucial insight: why banality matters. Banal mechanisms are often more effective than overt ideological assertion. Overt extremism invites resistance, violence, shock, and disrupts. Banality, however, works quietly through schools, ceremonies, language, and routine governance. It shapes common sense. Fundamentally, when embedded in banality, does not look like ideology, it looks like tradition, culture, and normalcy. This allows majoritarian norms to operate within democratic frameworks without appearing anti-democratic. To conclude, this paper argues that fundamentalism in contemporary India is sustained not only through movements or crises of conflict, but through the everyday normalization of majoritarian norms. By bringing together Michael Billig's concept of banal nationalism and Arjun Appadurai's analysis of majoritarian anxiety, we show how ideology becomes most powerful when it becomes least visible. Understanding fundamentalism as a banal cultural process rather than an exceptional phenomenon allows us to critically examine the ordinary institutions and practices that shape memory, identity, and belonging. If we wish to defend pluralism and democratic values, we must look only at the moments of violence, but at the mundane routines through which the nation is coyly reproduced every day. Thank you.